Hey guys, welcome to my first Shadowlands key commentary. So this key we've got for you is the 14 Halls of Atonement. At the time of recording this, it's still the first week. The highest key that's been done is the 17 Mists. So this is pretty good. Hopefully you enjoy and you can learn something. So right here, we're getting ready. Our very first pull is going to be a 2-pack. So these two Dark Blades, as well as that patrol that's coming from the right. There's some pretty important stuff to be aware of here. The Dark Blades do a frontal called Deadly Thrust, like they just did. The Gargans aren't super deadly unless they get enraged by the Houndmaster, at which point they are super deadly. I mean, they are pretty deadly. They put a dot on you, basically, and the dot is not great, but you can survive it as long as they're not enraged. But when they get enraged, they do like 200% damage or something. The way they get enraged is when that Houndmaster casts Loyal Beasts. If that cast goes off, it enrages, I think, all nearby Gargans. So later on, there's like packs with multiple Houndmasters, and if one of them gets the cast off, all of the Gargans get enraged. So it's pretty important that you stop those. It can't be interrupted, so you need to stun it, fear it. As a Shadow Priest, you Psychic Scream or you Psychic Horror, and that's basically all you can do to stop it. Right now we're running double Fire Mage, and they have a lot of tools that can stop that, like Dragon's Breath, Polymorph, although you would rather not Polymorph it because then it regens health, of course. So Dragon's Breath, and then our tank and our healer can both also do stuff. I'll talk a little bit about our comp. We've got Double Fire Mage, Holy Paladin, and Vengeance Demon Hunter. It's not super meta. Running triple range is probably not going to work going later into the season, but for now, I mean, it works really well because it's not like stuff that you don't interrupt. The biggest reason that it won't work later on is just because you don't have a lot of interrupts. And right now, not interrupting a couple things isn't a huge deal. You don't get like one shot by those wicked bolts, for instance. Stuff like that. So kicks aren't like crazy important right now. But maybe that'll change in the future. Maybe not. I would love to be able to run this same comp going deep into the season, because having Double Fire Mage opens up a lot of opportunities. Like, we can combust one pack from one Fire Mage, and then combust the next pack with the other Fire Mage, and just bounce the combusts back and forth and manage to burn the trash really quickly. So this pack was our first Lust. We did, I'm Venthyr, so I got the Loyal Stoneborn. In case you don't know, anyone who's a Venthyr can, basically ally with that Gargoyle. They're called Loyal Stoneborns. Any of those guys throughout the dungeon, if you have a Venthyr in your group, they go over to it, they press their extra action button. You have to be in combat with it first, and they're aggro anyway, so if you walk over to them, they're gonna pull. But you have to be in combat with them, and then you can press your extra action button, and they join your side for a while, and they fight for you. They do okay damage. I mean, it's not like crazy good, but it's definitely not bad. It's better than nothing. So, and you can something I should mention is that when you do that, you will not get percent for that mob. So when you take control of it, it fights for you, and then eventually it stops and it flies away. So even if you tag it after you've taken control of it and now it's no longer under your control, if you hit it then, it still doesn't give you percent. So if you have a Venthyr in your group and you're going to be pulling those Loyal Stoneborns and using them for you, you need to keep in mind that your route needs to not include them in your percentage, or else you're going to be under your percentage. So that's just something to keep in mind. Something we're doing here that I don't think a lot of people know is these shards of Halkias, or whatever they're called. They do an ability called Thrash, and Thrash is mega deadly, but it can be line of sighted. So we just ran behind that pillar over there, and we take no damage from the Thrash. That becomes super important at these higher levels because one tick of the Thrash is like 20% of your HP, 15%. So you can't take very many of them or you just die. So we'll do the same thing on the other shard over there. But for now, we're going to fight these Obliterators and these Dark Blades. The Obliterators cast Wicked Bolts, which are painful, so you want to kick those as much as you can, obviously. And the Dark Blades do that frontal. And that's just something that you need to stay out of the way of course. So that's where having 3 ranged comes in handy. It's very unlikely any of us are going to take damage from that frontal, which makes healing easier, means that our healer can do more damage. And the other cool thing about our comp right now is that we have 2 mages, and mages have a curse dispel. And there are a lot of things in here that put curses on you, like those Obliterators do a curse of obliteration. And we can just ignore that, like we can let this go off, and then we can just decurse that person. And we can save our interrupts for the more important stuff, like collect sins, or the wicked bolts, all that stuff. So right here is the best, as far as we know, the best line of sight spot for this shard. You tank him kind of where we're tanking him, and then every time he's going to cast Thrash, you run off the edge of the platform there and hide like down on the hill. That way, yeah, you try to minimize the damage you take. Right here I have a kind of hard time getting down there, and I take a bunch of damage, right? So I'm spamming Shadow Mints on myself because I can't really damage anything right then anyway. So may as well help my healer. Yeah, so this pull, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You need to kill these shards as fast as possible because they're that Thrash ability is really deadly, and they just all in all do a lot of damage. Some things I'll mention as far as like talents that I'm running. I'm running Surrender to Madness, which I get really bad use of in this dungeon. Just this run particularly. This isn't a bad dungeon for it, it's just that I have a hard time remembering to use it when I should. So that's something I need to work on. It's a playstyle that I've never played before. I never ran Surrender to Madness in BFA or anything, or Legion. So I gotta get used to it. Right there was supposed to pop our Prideful, but we missed a mob back on that first shard. There's a groundskeeper in the back, and we didn't pull him, which means we're like, as you can see, we're 39.56%, and Prideful spawns every 20%. So as soon as we kill one of these 4, we'll get the Prideful spawn. There it is. And this is kind of a bad situation because you want to just fight the Prideful. You don't want to have anything else with your Prideful spawn. So if we had gotten that groundskeeper in the back in that first shard, it would have been better, but we didn't, so we're making do with what we got. One of the new changes for the affixes, bursting can be dispelled now. So it was able to be dispelled at the very end of BFA, so most people probably know that, but in case you don't, it's a magic effect. So if you can dispel magic, like priests, you can mass dispel it, or a single target dispel it, or whatever. So I typically hold my mass dispel, depending on how good your healer is, and how willing they are to let you hold off on your mass dispel, I guess. I usually hold my mass dispel until we're at 4 or 5, maybe 6 stacks of bursting, because it doesn't seem to be like crazy bad to heal. And obviously depending on like what's happening, if we're at like 6 stacks, or if we're at like 3 stacks, but there's a ton of damage going out and our healer needs to be healing like crazy, then I'll help out and throw down a mass dispel. But one of the problems, especially in this comp with 3 ranged, is that it's hard to mass dispel everybody because everybody's so spread out. So what I like to do is remind people as we're getting near the end of the pull like this. I like to say, hey, come close to melee so I can mass dispel you. And so I go to mass dispel and everybody runs off and I just get like 2 of us right there. So it works sometimes, doesn't work other times. No big deal. It's really helpful if you're like all stacked and everything. You can mass dispel all 5 people, no big deal. Right here I'm taking this loyal Stoneborn. We're going to fight this shard as well as this groundskeeper and these other dudes. So this gazebo right here works for line of sight. So when this thrash goes out, we're going to step behind it. A really cool thing you can do as a Shadow Priest is you can be line of sight, and with your Searing Nightmare Mindseer build, you can target the tank with your Searing Nightmare as long as he's in your line of sight, even if the mobs aren't, like I was right there. You can target him with your Mindseer and then cast Searing Nightmare, and you can do damage around corners. So it's super cool, and I'd like to find more important places to use it, because this is like the first time I've been doing it. Right there our tank goes down, so this is quite bad, obviously. But luckily we have 2 mages who can Frost Nova, they can Dragon's Breath, all that stuff. They can alter time and run away and everything. I fade almost immediately anytime the tank goes down because I'm super squishy and I don't want to die, obviously. So, I mean, there's like an argument that you should maybe hold threat and run away, and then as soon as it's like really, really dangerous, they're really close to you, then you fade, and then they can run towards somebody else, and then you have more time to let the tank release and come back or whatever. Unless you're going to B-res them, of course. But I mean, I'd rather just immediately not die, so I usually just hit fade ASAP. But it's situational, of course, so. I was talking about my talents, sorry. I'm running Surrender to Madness, Death and Madness. I'm running, what else is super important? Body and Soul. Psychic Horror is pretty important. And Searing Nightmare. Let's see, is there anything I'm missing there? Oh, I'm not running Void Torrent or Damnation. I'm running Mindbender. So, this is basically like my go-to Mythic Plus setup. It kind of depends. Like, if it were a Tyrannical week, or we were in a dungeon where I was super afraid of the bosses, then I would run more of a single target setup. But especially with a group like this where we pull everything on top of each other, we do really big pulls, like 6, 7 plus mobs, Searing Nightmare gets a lot of value, and it's better than the alternatives, so I like to run that. So, so in like pug groups sometimes, you don't get a ton of value out of Searing Nightmare because they don't end up pulling the way that like helps Searing Nightmare. Okay, let me just mention right here, this Manifestation of Pride has died way too slowly. It gets a ramping stacking debuff, or a buff, I guess, where the higher the stacks go, the more damage it does. And once it hits 20, it's like really, really hard to heal through. So right there, I would like cast 2 abilities, Shadow Mend myself. 2 abilities, Shadow Mend myself, because there's just so much damage going out that there's no way our healer can keep up on her own. So the rest of us kind of need to help out. So, like, my health pot is on cooldown. We don't have health stones for this run. My VE is now on cooldown because I popped it for that. Basically, it's like, you want to kill the Pridefuls well before they hit 20 stacks. And then if they do hit 20 stacks, it's like really, really sketchy. So, don't be afraid to Shadow Mend yourself, to use Dispersion, Power Word Shield yourself as much as you can, all that stuff. You need to find the balance between doing damage and staying alive. If you die, you will do 0 DPS, so obviously prioritize staying alive over doing damage, but as long as you are alive, you want to do as much damage as possible, of course. So, in case anyone's not aware, those Mind Flays that are coming out that I'm not doing, those are from my Legendary. It's called Eternal Call to the Void. It drops off the Council of Blood in Castle Nathria. So, if you haven't crafted a Legendary yet, that's probably not a bad choice. My guild wanted to push into Heroic as far as we could, so they asked us to craft a rank 1 Legendary. We were lucky enough to have cleared Normal on our first day, we actually took an extra day this week to clear normal, and then our main raid days were for heroic. So we cleared normal. It doesn't matter if you do normal, heroic, or mythic to get the legendary memory. You should really just do it on normal or the lowest difficulty possible to make it easy. It's all the same. So right here, we just got rid of that Stoneborn. It looks like our mage's mirror images are hitting it still, but so we're getting into some different packs now. Our healer goes down there for some reason. I'm not sure what happened right there. That turn to stone is pretty important that you interrupt it. Any mobs that are standing within that circle, when the Reaver casts that, will get like a buff on them that makes it so they take like 30% reduced damage or something. I'm not sure the exact number, but they take a lot less damage. So you either want to interrupt it, or you want to run all the other mobs outside of it. It's pretty quick. It's like a 2-second cast, so you don't have much time to run stuff out. So just kick it if you can. But if you can't, you can purge it. So dispel magic. What's the purge from mage? Spell steal? Something like that? I'm not sure if spell steal is their kick or is their purge. Regardless, if it does go off, you can purge it from the mobs. So it's not a huge deal. It's just a waste of globals because you're not doing damage. Instead, you're purging. But, you do what you can. So, right here we pull a Slasher, an Obliterator, and a Darkblade. The Obliterator casts those Wicked Bolts or whatever. The Darkblade is the guy who does the frontal. And the Slasher does like this big rip thing on the tank. I'm not sure if it's the frontal or not, so if you're a ranged player, I mean, you have to stand at range for the Darkblades anyway. Especially when something like this happens. It's that powerful swipe that I was talking about. When something like this happens and the tank is kiting, it gets really hard to see which direction the frontals are pointing. So you need to make sure that you just give them a really wide berth. You don't want to accidentally be standing there, they walk past you, and they turn and just whack you and you're dead. Because that is not helpful. So we get our 4th Prideful spawn here. The way we handle Prideful is whoever gets the buff on them that puts that cross on the ground doesn't move, and everybody else stands in a diagonal from that person. So if everybody makes a diagonal line like this, like me, the Demon Hunter, our healer, and our Fire Mage right there, we make a diagonal line like that, no matter who gets the cross in that line, nobody will have to move, because it goes the same 4 directions every time. And so as long as you're in a diagonal like this, we can all just stand there and do nothing. And it makes it really easy to deal with. We get perfect timing with this Stoneborn Slasher. So these 2 gargoyles that we just ran past at the bottom of the stairs, they'll alternate. One of them will turn to stone and the other one will come to life. And then after a certain amount of time, they'll switch. So keep that in mind. You don't have to pull either of them. As long as one of them is turned to stone, you can walk past it, away from the other one, and you won't pull the other one. So we were hoping that the one on the left would turn to stone. It turned to stone right after we killed that pack, which was perfect. And then we, ran through and got to start on the boss. So on Mythic, this boss is different than on Heroic or anything. It casts that Curse of Stone on people. And this is a good time to have 2 Fire Mages, because they can dispel curses, and that Curse of Stone will stun you after it expires. So there's an ability that he casts. So this Curse of Stone goes out, and our mage wants to find whoever gets this stone-shattering leap on them, and he wants to decurse them. That way they can move to wherever the adds are, these adds that spawn right here. Because when they die, you need to walk over them with that stone-shattering leap so that they get destroyed by the boss. So they die. Right here we'll see. You want to kick as many of those villainous bolts as you can. So as you can see, their corpses are all still sitting there on Moon and Triangle. So he's going to dispel Zay, our tank. Oh, he actually didn't get the dispel off, but he was there anyway. So the boss jumps up, slams those, they die. So yeah, that's basically this whole boss fight. It's not super hard. You want to mostly single target the boss, depending on your group comp, I guess. These Stone Fiend dudes only have like 40k HP, which is not crazy. I'm Searing Nightmaring here, so I mean it helps to burn them down, but it's not crazy important. You do want them to die before that Stone Shattering Leap comes out, though. So if you're like the Fire Mages, I expected would kill them on their own. So if your Fire Mages or whoever you're running with don't kill them, then it's more important that you kill them, I guess. So they just need to die before the Stone Shattering Leap. So this is that pull that I was talking about earlier with the 2 Houndmasters and the Gargans. So both of these Houndmasters can cast Loyal Beasts. There's one right now. It got off. So our tank is like, I'm out of here. And he just runs away. Because those Gargans, like I said, when they're not enraged, they do decent damage. They're just like any other mob, basically. They have a bleed that's like pretty painful. But when they are enraged like this, it's really, really scary. They do like, I think like 200-300% increased damage. It's a lot. And you got to be really, really careful. Basically just kite the whole time. So you can help out by stunning them, fearing them. If you're playing a class that has a Soothe, or if you have somebody in your group that has a Soothe, that works on the Enrage. So you can, like a Hunter can Trank Shot them, a Druid can Soothe them or whatever, and that will make them not enraged, so that's good. So right here it gets really sketchy. I need to control that Loyal Stoneborn. I got him finally. These guys throw out like a... what's the thing called? It's like that big orange swirly on the ground that you guys saw. And it goes on one player, so I think it chooses a random player every time that one comes out. So you can bait it away from like where we had it. We had it in like the worst spot right there, so our tank had to run really far. Nobody could get close and everything. But if you all spread out like to the corners of the room, it should only go on you guys. It should only go on a player, and if you bait it to the right spots, you can leave a lot of area open in the middle. Although there is some... it's kind of RNG, so... So there's 2 Loyal Stoneborns in that room right there. What we do is we pull one of them with that first pack. I take control of it, and then we leave the second one for the boss to help with the boss damage. Because in the past, you were able to, if you pulled both Stoneborns and you got close to both of them, you were able to control both of them at the same time. But it seems that has been hotfixed, or at least changed. I don't know if it was broken, but it's at least changed. And now, as far as I can tell, you can only control one at a time. So if you have 2 Venthyr people in your group, there's a chance that you can control both. One person gets one and one person gets the other. But I'm not positive on that. So I think I tried it either yesterday or the day before, and it was like kind of sketchy. So I would just suggest pull one at a time. You can plan, like we did, you can plan to use one Loyal Stoneborn for something and then another for something else, if there's 2. But yeah, just plan on only having one at a time. So this boss, super straightforward. It casts a volley that you want to interrupt. It casts a bolt that you want to interrupt. And then every so often it spawns that ghost thing that targets one player and follows them. This lantern I'm standing by right here, you just want to walk the ghost into the lantern as fast as possible. So as soon as the ghost gets the lantern will like suck the ghost into it, and it'll disappear. The ghost and the lantern will disappear, and that way you don't have to deal with the ghost anymore. The ghost does pulsing AoE damage. I think it's proximity based too, so you want to stand as far away from it as you can, and you want to get rid of it as fast as possible because it does a lot of damage. So right here, we have that main mini-boss guy, and then you have all these tormented souls. And in the past, I've seen groups that can take the main mini-boss dude, run him behind the wall and line of sight him, and then just burn him down before he casts his Dark Communion thing, which heals him back up. But the only time I've seen that work is when you don't get in combat with any of these tormented souls, and you have enough damage to burn him like pretty quick. And since I have seen that work in the past, but recently it seems that they changed it so that you always get in combat with at least one of these groups. And in that case, I think when on his first Dark Communion cast, it puts you in combat with one of these Tormented Soul groups. And in that case, you're not going to be able to, especially on a higher key like this. I mean, he's got 700,000 health. There's no way we can kill him before he casts that. So basically what we did was we all focused one group at a time. So we burned down the first group, burned down the second group, burned down the third group, and then we start actually killing this guy. So something to keep in mind, these manifestations of envy, they will fixate. Like this one's fixated on me right now. It just died, but so if you're getting smacked by them, don't get mad at your tank because there's nothing he can do. They'll fixate and they'll run right at you, and you basically just have to deal with it. And you have to, I mean, they don't do a ton of damage, so it's not like crazy important that you kill them ASAP, but you will get overrun by them. Like we had a lot right there. And at that point, when you have like too many, they can get pretty dangerous, so you do want to kill them, obviously. So we're just finishing up this Inquisitor, and after we've killed this guy, we'll move on to the last boss. We've got 4 minutes and 45 seconds left, so it's looking like we got plenty of time. Obviously, we don't want to wipe or anything because we don't have a ton of time, but we should be able to finish this off pretty easy. And it turns out our Prideful spawns right here, so we got to fight this before we get to the boss. But luckily, with the way this is set up, also, how did that hit me right there? That Prideful cross thing? I was so far out of that, I think. Anyway, so we're about to, the way this is set up, we have the Manifestation of Pride spawns right before the last boss, which means when the Prideful dies and we get the Prideful buff, which increases your damage, it increases your movement speed, it increases your mana regen, all this stuff, we'll be able to take that buff right into the boss, and it'll help us burn down the boss a lot quicker. So you want as much time as possible with this buff on the boss. So we start the boss fight with 53 seconds of it left. Right here, I'm just going to go crazy because I have so much haste. I've got Power Infusion, Lust, all that stuff. I pop Void Form. This telekinetic toss that the boss does, when he chooses one of those statues, it'll turn and face the direction that it's going to go. So, like right there, it turned right at me and our Fire Mage right here, so we both step back, it flies past us, we're good. This Ritual of Woe can be kind of cheesed. Our mage right there that ice blocked is trying to soak 2 of them, but he misses, so I run in and help soak. And our Demon Hunter tank is also soaking 2 of them. That's the ideal, is that our tank soaks 2, and our mage gets close enough and ice blocks and also soaks 2. If you're standing right up in the boss's hitbox and kind of aim yourself right, you should be able to soak 2, and depending on, like, if you're a Demon Hunter in meta or something, you can potentially soak 3, so just keep that in mind. The Ritual of Woe is really deadly, and it needs to be soaked, but it's also really painful to the people who soak it, so you gotta be smart about who you have soak it. So there's the next telekinetic toss, and it's looking like this is going to be the end of the key. So I just want to say thank you everybody for watching. I will be doing more of these in the future. If you have any comments or anything, let me know. I've thought about doing way more in depth, like having an hour and a half long video where I talk very in depth about this stuff. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.